Hi everyone. One of our core convictions at Catholic Revival Ministries is that God means for us to hear Him as part of the normal everyday experience of our Christian lives. But if that's the case, then why do so many people struggle to hear God's voice for themselves? I want to talk about just a few of the top reasons we found that to be the case and some insights for overcoming these. Reason one that people struggle to hear God: they believe in the lie of a silent or distant God. The expectations that we bring with us into prayer have a strong influence on the way that we experience it. And if we have a theology of absence where we expect God to be mostly absent and maybe only show up every now and then chances are we're going to experience Him that way. But if instead we start from a theology of presence where we expect God to be present, and not just like present as a theological fact, but relationally present, then we're better positioned to focus our attention on the particular way that God wants to speak to us in that moment. Reason two that people struggle to hear God: they doubt their ability to hear. When we were baptized into Christ, we were made into a new creation. Part of that means we receive the theological virtues, which you might say retrofit us for divine life. In other words, God has placed inside of us everything that we need to be able to tune in to the frequency of His voice. And so my ability to hear God's voice has much less to do with having confidence in myself and much more to do with having confidence in what God's grace has already done to me to give me the capacity to hear His voice. Reason three that people struggle to hear God: they're not sure that they want to hear. Many people think that God is only interested in reprimanding us or pointing out our faults. And so they expect to carry out of prayer just these feelings of shame or guilt or things like that. But Jesus reveals God to us as a good father. And a good father doesn't surprise his children with snakes and scorpions when they ask for good things, right? In fact, some of God's favorite topics to speak to us about in prayer are things like His love for us, the ways He delights in us, and even the destiny that He's placed on our lives. In a word, God's voice always brings life, joy, and freedom. Reason four that people struggle to hear God: they don't know what to look for. We can often overlook God's voice simply because it shows up in simpler ways than what we were expecting. The people we might look up to as having a special relationship with God, most of the time, they don't actually have any more dramatic or mystical experiences of prayer than that your average Christian does. They simply have learned to identify the ways that God speaks to them through the thoughts in their minds, the movements of their hearts, and even through what you might call the spiritual senses. And so, if you'd like to learn more about how to hear God's voice more clearly in your life, both for your own sake and for the sake of blessing others with that, we invite you to join Catholic Revival Ministries for our upcoming Rhema workshop on March 3rd, where we want to equip you and give you the chance to practice some of the concrete tools for hearing God's voice. So follow the link up in our profile if you're interested in learning more, and we hope to see you there.